What's up everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of my State of Xbox Developer series. Considering we only have one more studio to look at, I thought it was fitting to leave the most important one, the one in charge of Xbox's flagship Halo franchise, until last, 343 Industries. After all, before 343 had even released a Halo game, Phil Spencer let them know what was at stake when he publicly said if they lose their way with this IP, Xbox as a whole has lost its way. 343 have now also been guiding Halo for longer than Bungie, whose monumental success with the IP is the reason why Xbox was able to disrupt the industry and become the third console maker in the early 2000s. There's therefore no reason why Halo shouldn't be thriving. Is this the case? Let's find out.
Halo. It's finished.
No, I think we're just getting started.
Founded in 2007, 343 Industries was created with the sole purpose of continuing Halo, a franchise that through Bungie's talent had become the most popular first-person shooter on console. It's therefore not surprising that 343 is housed just 3 miles away from Microsoft HQ to keep them close as they oversee Xbox's most important IP. The studio is even named after Halo character 343 Guilty Spark, so that it was clear to Xbox owners that this was Bungie's successor, though they continued working on the franchise with games like Halo ODST and Halo Reach until 2010, which gave 343 enough incubation time to hire up and establish a culture that could develop quality Halo games which lived up to Bungie's legacy.
I'm glad to have your skill set, but we're a team. That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
Speaking of legacy, the first game 343 released was Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, a remake of the 2001 original Xbox launch title Halo Combat Evolved. This was done to ingratiate themselves with Halo fans, make a statement that they were capable of continuing Bungie's work, and celebrate the 10th anniversary of this industry-changing masterpiece. However, as 343 were primarily focused on a true sequel to Halo 3, they collaborated with Saber Interactive to remake the campaign and Certain Affinity for the multiplayer. This three-party collaboration proved to be successful, as the remake released to a great 82 on Metacritic, with praise focusing on the game engine that allowed the player to seamlessly toggle between the original and remade HD graphics in-game with just a click of a button. It was in fact Halo 1's original gameplay that lowered the score due to feeling outdated and imbalanced, though I'd argue 343 made the correct choice of ensuring the original gameplay was preserved. This is what the majority of long-time Halo fans wanted, as this was the experience they remembered from 10 years ago, and they were the audience that 343 had to get into the good graces of in order to have any long-term success. The anniversary was also applauded for introducing online support for both co-op and multiplayer modes that wasn't possible with the original release, though the multiplayer itself was criticized for primarily just being Halo Reach's multiplayer, with only 7 maps getting the full remake treatment. A decision 343 Industries director Frank O'Connor knew was controversial, even at 343, but was necessary so that Halo's player base wouldn't be divided and interrupt Halo Reach's lifespan. Overall, Halo Anniversary was a great first game 343 sorely needed to show fans that Xbox's most important IP was in the right hands now that Bungie was gone. And it wouldn't be too long before 343 could prove they could create their own Halo game, with Halo 4 releasing less than a year later.
Wake up, Chief. I need you.
Halo 4's development cycle was 3 years, which was quite long for a 360-era game, but necessary considering this was 343's first original Halo title that they had to get right. For the campaign, 343 created a new Forerunner-focused setting and enemy faction to differentiate from the original Bungie trilogy and expand the Halo universe. They also grounded the story by primarily focusing on the relationship between the IP's 2 main protagonists in Master Chief and Cortana. Halo 4 released to an excellent 87 on Metacritic, with critics praising this story and the reintroduction of the Master Chief, who wasn't in the last 2 Bungie games. However, the actual levels, though beautiful, were criticized for its lack of scale and spectacle. According to 343, this was due to hardware limitations of the 360, in the same way that the original Xbox throttled Bungie's ambitions for Halo 2. Multiplayer was also not particularly well received, but to be fair, this started with Bungie's Halo Reach, which was clearly influenced by Call of Duty due to what a juggernaut its multiplayer had become. Mechanics like loadouts just didn't translate well to Halo. Regardless, despite being Xbox's most expensive first-party title at the time, this was offset with a new sales record for the franchise. But most importantly, 343 proved they could make their own quality Halo game leading into the Xbox One generation.
Master Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
The Xbox One launched in 2013, and it would only be another year until the 10th anniversary for Halo 2. So once again, 343 decided to remake a Bungie masterpiece as their first next-generation game. However, this time, all 4 mainline titles would be included in a compilation called the Master Chief Collection. According to then 343 studio head Bonnie Ross, the initial plan was just to remake Halo 2 because Halo 4 was meant to be an Xbox One launch title. However, when it became a 2012 Xbox 360 game, the time between Halo 4 and 5 then became too long, and so there needed to be a larger collection to warrant the wait. Although Halo 1, 3, and 4 only received minor graphical upgrades, Saber Interactive would once again completely remake the Halo 2 campaign, and this time, the prestigious Blur Studio would remake the cutscenes. The collection then launched on Halo 2's 10th anniversary to an excellent 85 on Metacritic, but this would unfortunately mark a turning point for both the game and 343 for the worse. Because when the game launched, it was immediately apparent that the online infrastructure 343 and Certain Affinity developed was completely broken. Essentially, every player experienced problems ranging from online matchmaking, uneven matchmaking if they even got into a game, inaccurate stats, and player ranks resetting. This horrendous situation would continue for not weeks, not months, but years, as 343 had to completely alter their infrastructure to fix the problem. To be fair to Microsoft, many senior staff including Bonnie Ross and Phil Spencer apologized multiple times. They also extended Xbox Live Gold and offered a remaster of the ODST campaign for free to anyone who played the game before December 2014. But this was such a huge misstep that these gestures didn't come close to undo the reputational damage 343 had brought on themselves. After all, Bungie never had a problem this large with their 5 Halo titles. It was therefore imperative for 343 to ensure Halo 5 was well received to prevent even worse comparisons with Halo's former developers.
You are a hunter, yes, a seeker of things.
That's not the official job title, but it's close enough.
And now you hunt other Spartans.
I'm not so much hunting a Spartan as I'm hunting the Spartan.
Halo 5 Guardians released on Xbox One in October 2015, but development started right after Halo 4 released in late 2012. 343's vision for Guardians was to take what critics didn't like about Halo 4 and turn them into a strength. This meant utilizing Xbox One's hardware and Microsoft's cloud infrastructure for larger levels and multiplayer maps that, unlike Halo 4, would run at 60 FPS. They also further expanded the universe by introducing new characters like the playable Spartan Locke of Fireteam Osiris, who was hunting the Chief. Guardians was also 343's first multiplayer developed without Certain Affinity. There were 20 maps at launch, with a further 15 added over the next year for free, as 343 didn't want to divide their players. All this led to an 84 on Metacritic, with the multiplayer in particular being extremely well received as it ripped out any COD influences and returned to classic Halo Arena gameplay. Furthermore, the new Warzone mode also kept 343's promise of bringing larger scale battles across huge environments that wasn't possible on 360 hardware. Also, this time, the multiplayer actually worked. However, unlike Halo 4, where the campaign was preferred over the multiplayer, the inverse occurred with Guardians. Although the general gameplay and larger level design was well received, the campaign story was slated for straying too far from Master Chief and Cortana and forcing the player to consume Halo content outside of the games to fully understand the story. Also, for some reason, 343 thought it was a good idea to play as Locke over Chief for the majority of the levels. I guess they never read Halo 2 reviews. Finally, Guardians was also criticized for not including couch co-op, a decision 343 promised they would never make again. Keep that in mind when we discuss Halo Infinite. Campaign issues aside though, Guardians still sold 5 million copies in 3 months and ended up being the Xbox One's best-selling first-party game. Trust me when I say it was well received in 2015 and helped Halo fans somewhat forgive 343's failures with the Master Chief Collection. The industry's revisionist history paints Guardians in a far more negative light than it deserves.
All hail the conquering hero.
The one who was supposed to save us all.
But now I must save us from you.
Although it took 343 more than 6 years to release Halo Infinite after Guardians, Halo games were still releasing. In fact, 343 collaborated with numerous studios to release spin-offs since 2013, like Halo Spartan Assault, a twin-stick shooter by Vanguard Games that was Halo's first game to release on mobile. Though it only scored a 53 on Metacritic, the 2015 sequel Spartan Strike fared much better with an 86 thanks to better controls and mission variety. 343 also collaborated with Creative Assembly to remaster Ensemble's 2009 Xbox 360 RTS Halo Wars, resulting in an 81 on Metacritic and further cementing it as the best-selling console RTS ever. Creative Assembly then released Halo Wars 2 in 2017, and it was also well received. It also introduced Halo Infinite's main enemy faction with the Banished. Finally, there was also the 2018 arcade game Halo Fireteam Raven, which by all accounts seems to be a fun spectacle to play through once. However, as these games are spin-offs that were developed externally, they're not really worth more than a brief mention when assessing 343, especially when looking at the ongoing train wreck that is Halo Infinite, which overshadows any critical or commercial accomplishments these spin-offs achieved. Speaking of Infinite, in the interest of time, I have decided to dedicate an entire episode to its assessment, due to there just being so much to cover in its 7+ years in development. We'll figure out where current day Xbox's most important game stands in 2023, how that affects how we should look at 343 going forward, and yes, there will be a spirited defense of Halo 4 and 5.